Good morning. It's 20 past 6 a.m. and it's probably about I would say about 10 degrees. It's going to be a nice clear day. I think a top temperature of about 23, maybe 24. These clouds will clear away. It'll be a beautiful blue sky. And I've just changed the setting on the GoPro, and I'm just going to experiment with it. I've changed the Pro settings to see if it can make a difference with the wind noise. Although prior to that it was pretty good anyway, prior to me changing it, but I just want to see if I can get it better. I was watching TeapotOne, one of my favourite YouTubers, Scottish guy who lives in south of England, and I was watching his recommendations on GoPro settings, so I've changed mine to what he recommended, and we'll just see what happens. If I don't like it, I can always switch it back, because as I said, it wasn't too bad before, but it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't too bad, so we'll see what happens. And every time I come along here, this little channel, this roadway from home, I get this really loud wind noise in my helmet. It wouldn't be picked up by the GoPro, I think. But because it must be like a natural funnel, trees on either side, and when I get out into more open spaces like this, it seems to disappear. Here's a tradie off to work. Boy, he is loaded down. I hope he's got it. I hope he's secure. Got a garage door. God, if that came off and rolled on the bloody freeway, it'd be mayhem. Unfortunately, a couple of months ago, about 3 months ago, there was a motorcyclist killed on the M1 because of an insecure load. He was following it and came along, and following a tradie's vehicle just like that, and the load came off and he hit it, and then he got run over by a car following him, and unfortunately he died. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's very secure, so I hope it is. Hope some of those rods that he's got sticking out there don't come out. Anyway, so I had my Triumph Tiger 800 XRX serviced yesterday at my local dealer. It was a 50,000 kilometre service, which is a small service. It cost me $222, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, really all as it was change the oil and the oil filter, and everything else was pretty much a check. They plug it into the computer and it checks to see if there's any faults, which there wasn't. Everything else is a check. They check the chain tension. I was supposed to clean the chain, but I'll bet they didn't, because I had cleaned it myself only about a couple of days before, and I'd only ridden it from home to there. So, but anyway, they're supposed to clean and tension the chain, and they've definitely checked, readjusted the front brake and the clutch, and they did the throttle bodies, because I told them that it was I had a bit of a kangaroo hop sensation occasionally on the throttle, but I think that was probably more my fault, because it's a ride-by-wire bike. Unless you're very smooth with your throttle handle, you can get that jumping kangaroo hop type sensation. And I know when I first took the bike for a test ride, the 800 for a test ride, I came back and I said to the salesman, I can't ride that bike. I said, it's just kangaroo hops all over the place. I said, it's terrible. And he said, oh, it's ride by wire. He said, you probably find that it's your throttle control. And I thought, yeah, wait, I thought I already had good throttle control. Anyway, he was right, and I discovered that my throttle control wasn't anywhere near as good as I thought it was. So once I got used to it and got used to a smooth application of the throttle, all the kangaroo hopping went away. But I just came back from a 2,000 kilometre holiday, 8-day holiday to New South Wales with my wife, and I noticed it starting again, but I think that was probably more my fatigue at the end of the day. Not that we did big days, we only did about 350 kilometres every day, each day, but I think it was probably a little bit of fatigue at the end of each day, because I noticed it. So it was probably more me getting a bit tired. But anyway, they played with that. I can notice a difference when I pick the bike up. So that was the Tiger 800, and I was very pleased with the price. $222. I mean, if I was just to do the oil and the filter myself, that's the best part of almost $100. Because the oil I buy is around about 80. I can get it a little bit cheaper sometimes on special. But even so, if I get it cheaper, it's still 65 to 70. But generally the going rate's 80 for that oil. And the oil filter, it's usually around about $20. So close to 100 for myself. And for them to do it and then to do their computer checks, they check the wheel bearings, they check the head bearings, so everything else was checked. So I probably paid about $120 in labour, so that's probably an hour's labour, I guess, for them to do that. So all up, I was pretty happy with that. And this bike, the the NC750X, the Honda, it's coming up for its 36,000 kilometre service, and I have to get it done probably within the next 4 to 5 weeks, because in 6 weeks' time I'm heading down to New South Wales and Canberra, the Australian Capital Territory, for a 7 to 10 day family catch-up visit. I'll go to Canberra and stay with my sister and her husband. Probably spend 2 days there, 2 nights anyway. Then I'll ride down to Moruya. I'll probably spend 2 nights there with my older sister and her husband. And then I might come back up the coast and maybe spend 1 night at Nowra. Got a cousin that lives there and I hadn't seen him for a long time. So I might stop at Nowra and see if I can score a bed at his house. And I've got a mate that lives at Nambucca Heads, so I'll probably go down from here to Nambucca on day 1, stay the night with him. He said he's going to come with me, but we'll see, he may or may not. If he does, it's good company. We've got a lot of shared interests, so it's good company. And yeah, so I need the bike serviced before I head off down to New South Wales, ACT. I've purchased new tyres, they're not fitted yet. I've got Pirelli Rally, I can never remember the name of them, Pirelli something Rally 2, Scorpion Rally 2, that's what they are. Pirelli Scorpion Rally 2. So they're 80% road and 20% off-road, and I don't do any off-road. So you're probably asking yourself, why the hell did I buy those tyres instead of just complete road tyres? Well, I have those tyres, Pirelli Scorpion Rally 2, on my Tiger 800, and they are fantastic. And I don't do any off-roading on my Tiger 800, it's purely a touring bike. But they're great tyres. I really feel secure with them, especially in wet conditions. And they feel really good cornering, so I feel well planted on the road. And the big bonus is the longevity. On the Tiger, the first set I had, I got 25,000 kilometres out of the front tyre, and it was still in good, reasonable condition. The rear tyre, I had I had 12,000 kilometres on the rear tyre, and I got a big spike in the tyre which fractured the wall of the tyre, so I had to completely change it. So I put on this other, I don't even know what the other one was. I know I was in Norway when it happened. I was in Bergen, Norway. So the tyre that I put on was just another road tyre, and I probably did about another 12. I did about 12 or 13,000 on it, and it was shot. So when I was due to replace the rear tyre, the front tyre, like I said, was close to 25,000 k. Yeah, so I just said, bugger it, I'll put two new Pirelli Scorpion Rally 2 on front and rear, which I did, and I've done 6,000 kilometres on those new tyres, and they've still got hardly any signs of wear on them. Just brilliant. So that's what I'm going to put on the Honda. At the moment I have Pirelli Angel GT, and I've had those on quite a few bikes since they first came out, and yeah, they're not a bad tyre. I usually get about 10 to 12,000 on the rear and probably 14 on the front, but I always change them at the same time, so yeah, I get a reasonable amount of work and life out of them. But yeah, I don't feel quite as comfortable with those in the wet, especially on this bike. And I've found that they square off probably after about 8 to 10,000 k's anyway, so that makes cornering difficult, which I haven't found that problem with the Scorpion Rally. Anyway, so they're going to go on this bike. I've ordered them, and I'll put them on this bike for when I head off south. Okay, so what I'm going to do very shortly is I'm going to pull over. In fact, I won't do that. I was going to pull over and change the setting on the GoPro back to what it was, so I could do a comparison. But I won't do that. I'll wait till I get to the Outpost Cafe. It's only about another 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And I'll change the setting when I get there for the ride home. Just do the comparison and see what it sounds like. Anyway, it's nowhere near as cold as I thought it would be on the bike. I don't have heated grips on this bike, which when I go down south is going to be a bugger. I have heated grips on the Tigers, and the Tiger and I had them on a couple of times last week and the week before when I was away. But don't have heated grips on this. It's probably not worth putting it on given the fact I live in Queensland and it's very rarely cold enough up here to warrant heated grips. But it can get chilly. Oh, good man. Good man, truck driver, pulled over and let me go. Probably realised I've been following him for a fair while. Yeah, very rarely does it get cold enough in Queensland to warrant heated grips. I mean, you can get down to 4 or 5 in the morning, but I don't commute on this bike. I can tour on it, I have toured on it, but usually in the middle of the day when the sun gets up 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, it's just not cold enough to worry about heated grips. So consequently I don't have heated grips on this bike. This bike, I've had it for almost 18 months I suppose. I think I bought it in August 2019, so it's coming up 2 years. It's now April 2021. I had 7,000 kilometres on it when I bought it. I think I've done about 32 or 33 on it now. So I'll get it serviced before I leave to go down south. But been very happy with it. Runs on the smell of an oily rag, very frugal in its petrol consumption. I can get 400 kilometres a tank if I go touring. If I just ride it around town, I'll probably get about 340 to 350. And for a 14 litre tank, that's pretty good range. It hasn't got a lot of oomph, but what do you expect for a bike that's only 54 horsepower and weighs about, I think it's about 210 kg or something like that, probably a little bit heavier wet. It's not top heavy, all the weight's down low, so it's easy to push around. Cheap to maintain. I can do the oil and the oil filter and the air filter, they're easy to do. I can adjust the brakes, I can play with the clutch. Valve adjustment's a bit beyond me, but I've got a good mechanic who does that. There's not much else you really need to do to this bike. It's got the frunk on down here, the trunk, or the frunk as they call it, the front frunk, which supposedly can hold a helmet, but it can't hold any of my helmets. But I have extra large, all my helmets are extra large, so that probably explains why it won't take my helmet. I have seen YouTube videos of helmets going in there, but yeah, certainly mine won't fit. But it'll take, I can put a backpack in there with t-shirts, socks, undies, little toiletries bag, so if I go touring on it I can actually put a week's worth of stuff in the backpack and put it in the front. It's got a little toolkit in there, put your wallet, gloves when you stop, put a jumper in there if you need be. Yeah, very, very good. But then the worst part about this bike is the location of the fuel tank cap, which is under the rear passenger seat, and you've got to flip up the passenger seat, which is easy, not hard. But the problem is you can't put it, well you can, but you put something on the back seat if you go touring. If you strap on a bag, a waterproof bag, you've got to unstrap it to refuel, and it becomes a pain in the neck. But anyway, and I have toured on this bike, two up. My wife and I took it down to Canberra and Maruya. It's like a 5,000 kilometre round trip. About 18 months, not long after I got it, about 18 months ago, and I found it toured, was quite capable as a tourer. I had my small backpack in the trunk in the front. I've got a Givi top box on the back. So not a Givi top box, sorry. It's anyway, whatever. I've got a top box on. 36 litre top box, and that was big enough for my wife to put her backpack with her clothes and toiletries for the week in it. So we could, and I strapped the tank bag on the front, and I didn't need to open the front except at the end of the day to get my backpack out with my clothes. With a tank bag I could put in my wallet, water, camera, spare pair of gloves, neck scarf, spare pair of glasses. Yeah, so I could tour it, and it toured no trouble at all. It could easily sit on 100 to 120 kilometres an hour on the motorway. The only disadvantage of this bike as a tourer is the suspension. It's non-adjustable at the front, and the rear you can adjust it, but I've got it on a setting that I find comfortable, and I haven't touched it since I bought it. It seems to be okay for the wife. But you do notice the bumps after a while when you start to get fatigued, when you get tired toward the end of the day. The seat, yeah, people say it's a hard seat. I haven't found it to be hard. And I think just about any bike, after you've been on it 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in a day, your butt gets sore. So I can't really say that I've had any worse trouble with this. And I can sit on this comfortably for 2 hours. My butt starts to get sore, gets a little bit uncomfortable, but I very rarely ride longer than 2 hours without a break anyway, especially when I've got the wife on. And usually we pull up every 100 to 150k. Have a stretch, have a coffee, take photos. So we don't do a lot of distance between breaks. Gotta watch this bloke behind me. I'm not sure where he is. Can't see him now. He's in behind me. He must have had his headlights on, because I looked in my rear vision mirror at the moment he turned them off, and he looked like he was coming pretty quick, but he's so I thought, where those two lanes turned into one, he may have been right up my butt, but he wasn't. He was hanging back, which is good. Anyway, I was saying the suspension on this bike is not all that good, but it's a budget bike. This is a 2016 model, and I think they were worth probably 11,000, maybe a smidge under 11, 10 and a half I bought it second hand for 7,000 with 7,000 kilometres on it, and I paid $7,500. It was in very, very good condition. The guy had owned it for 2.5, 3 years, and only done 7,000 k's on it. And he was telling me most of those 7,000 he did on a touring trip with his father-in-law. And he said they probably did about 3,000 kilometres on that trip. So he didn't do a lot of kilometres on it. But I bought it. It's a budget bike. It was cheap to buy. It's cheap to run with fuel. It's cheap to maintain. And I bought it as my hack bike. And I keep my Tiger 800 as a touring bike. It's equipped with panniers, top adventure panniers and top box, metal panniers, top box, and heated grips and ABS traction control, engine mapping, different engine mapping, rain, sport, road. So it's got all the goodies on it. And so my wife and I use that on touring, so I only ride that once a week. I don't believe in letting bikes sit and not ride them. All the parts that need to be lubricated don't get lubricated. So I ride it once a week, and other than that, it just sits undercover with a trickle charger. Whereas my daily ride, if I ride daily, which I don't, but I probably ride 3 or 4 times a week, and this is the bike. And I quite enjoy it. It's got enough power for me. I'm not a speed hungry or speed freak. I don't think I've ever been faster. Probably about 150, maybe 160 kilometres an hour, and that was on the German autobahn, and I was still getting overtaken by cars. I felt like I was going backwards even at that speed. Yeah, but generally I don't speed, and not a speed freak. Alright, so we're at the outpost. Looks like the King's here. His Honda orangey gold coloured Honda 750 is here. Don't know if he's got an audience. He's usually got an audience of blokes there that are Robert, the King of Canunga, I call him. He usually gets here at 5 AM in the morning when they open. Leaves anywhere between 8 and 9 AM. Oh yeah, he's got his old mate there, the Scotsman. And they sit there and conduct the audience. Been sitting there for years in Robert's corner. Alright, so let's see, are we still going? Yeah, we're still recording, so I'm going to take my gloves off. And I'm going to turn the camera off.